वासुदेवाय। ओम नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय। ओम अज्ञानतिमिरन्धस्य ज्ञानाञ्जनशलाकया चक्षुरुन्मीलितं येन तस्मै श्रीगुरवे नमः। श्रीचैतन्यमनोभीष्टं स्थापितं येन भूतले स्वयं रूपकदा मह्यं ददाति स्वपदान्तिकम्। वन्देऽहं श्रीगुरो श्रीयुतः पदकमलं श्रीगुरून् वैष्णवांश्च श्रीरूपं सागरजातं सहगण रघुनाथान्वितं तं सजीवं साद्वैतं सावधूतं परिजनसहितं कृष्णचैतन्यदेव श्रीराधा कृष्णपादान् सहगण ललिता श्रीविशाखान्वितांश्च नमो ॐ विष्णुपादाय कृष्णपृष्ठाय भूतले श्रीमते भक्तिवेदान्तस्वामिन्यति नामिने नमस्ते सरस्वतीदेवे गौरवाणी प्रचारिणि निर्विशेषा शून्यवादी पाश्चात्यदेशतारिणि नमो महावदन्याय कृष्णप्रेमप्रदायते कृष्णाय कृष्णचैतन्य नाम्ने गौरत्विषे नमः। हे कृष्णा करुणा सिन्धु दीनबन्धो जगत्पते गोपेश गोपिकान्त श्रीराधाकान्त नमोऽस्तुते। तप्तकाञ्चन गौरङ्गी श्रीराधे वृन्दावनेश्वरि वृषभानुसुते देवी प्रणमामि हरिप्रियै। वाञ्छाकल्पतरुभ्यश्च कृपासिन्धुभ्य एव च पतितानां पावनेभ्यो वैष्णवेभ्यो नमो नमः। जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधार श्रीवासादि श्री गौर भक्तवृंद। हरे कृष्ण 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे हरे। Hare Krishna. So we welcome all the devotees for today's class on Bhakti Shastri chapter 8. So we are starting we are starting on the chapter 8. 1 minute. Just give me time that I start sharing. So this is chapter 8, attaining the Supreme. So we yesterday saw in the last chapter, 7th and last two verses, where Krishna introduced many things, many terms, Brahman, Karma, Adhyatma. So all those terms are been inquired by Arjuna here now on the 8th chapter. So first two verses in this 8th chapter are the questions of Arjuna. There are total 8 questions, and in that first 7 question has been answered in the first 3 verses only, 4 verses, and then fifth verse answers the 8th verse. So 8th verse also gives a detailed explanation throughout the chapter. Then 8th question, not verse, sorry. So 8th question gives the total understanding about further progress. So, and that is also at different stages. That is also discussed at different stages. So we'll see the breakup for this chapter is like this. First 4 verses, Krishna answers Arjuna's first 6 questions. And then the seventh question, not 8 question, total 7 questions are there. The seventh question has been answered in verse 5 to 8, remembrance of Krishna at the time of death. And 9 to 13, remembrance by Yoga Mishra Bhakti. So different levels of remembrance has been explained now. From 14-15, remembrance by Shuddha Bhakti. And then remembrance by comparing nature of material and spiritual worlds. And then 23 onwards, remembrance by Bhakti Yoga is easier than by Ashtanga Yoga. So this is the total section breakup, 6 sections of this chapter. We will read the verses and then move forward. First verse. अर्जुन उवाच किं तद्ब्रह्म किम् आध्यात्मं किं कर्म पुरुषोत्तमम् अधिभूतं च किं प्रोक्तम् अधिदैवं किमुच्यते. Please read. Aman Prabhu.
Arjuna inquired, O my lord,
Arjuna inquired, O my lord, O supreme person, what is Brahman? What is the self? What are fruitive activities? What is this material manifestation? And what are the demigods? Please explain this to me.
Yes. So, Kim Tad Brahma. What is Brahman? Kim Adhyatmam. What is self? Kim Karma Purushottamam. What are the fruitive activities? O Purushottama. So, I am not asking to any my friend now. He is a supreme person. He is asking to the supreme person. Adhibhutam. What is this material manifestation? And Chakim Proktam Adhidaivam Kimuchate. And what are the demigods? Please explain this to me. So, because these terms were spoken in the last chapter, last 2 verses. So, Arjuna is telling now, what is this? Please explain to me. He is asking. We'll see the second verse also to me immediately now. Then we'll see the details, questions, and answers. Sorry. Adiyagya katham kotra dehasmin madhusudanah प्रयाणकाले च कथम गेयोऽसि नियतात्मभिः अधियज्ञम कथम कोत्रम. Who is the Lord of sacrifice? Dehe asmin Madhusudana. And how does he live in this body? Dehe asmin Madhusudana. Again, Madhusudana is asked because Arjuna is a devotee and these questions are out of doubt. So, uh, Madhusudana, he is a killer of demon. And Krishna is a killer of demon. And doubt also is like one demon. If doubt stays in our heart, then it grows bigger and bigger and bigger, and it creates a very disturbing situation in our mind and practice of devotional service. So, therefore, Arjuna is telling, please kill that doubt. Hey Madhusudana. And then he asked the last question, seventh question. Prayana kale cha katham geyosmi niyatatmabhi. And how can those engaged in devotional service know you at the time of death? So these are the 7 questions. So here is a summary of last chapter. In the 6th chapter, Yoginam api sarvesham madgatena antaratmana is given. So best yogi is given, one who serves and thinks of Krishna. Shraddhavan bhajate yomam samyukta tamomata. And 7th chapter talks about how to attain such constant remembrance by Maya Sakta Maya Partha Yogam Yunjanadashriyam Asamsiyam Samagramma Yatha Gyasya Tachrudo. That we saw, no? How this step by step person can remember by being attached to Krishna, practicing the process of Bhakti Yoga. And when he starts hearing, he becomes free from the doubt. And then he takes a shelter. Thus, he practices Bhakti Yoga. And then his mind gets attached to Krishna. And in this chapter, Krishna explains about Krishna is the essence of everything. The all different 8 elements and is the controller of three modes also. And overcoming is possible by surrendering into him only. And who can surrender to the demigods? There are four kinds of people who surrenders to Lord, and four kind of people who don't surrender to the Lord. And then there are different levels of surrenders. Surrender to the demigods, and then surrender to the some different impersonalist. And towards the eight, towards the end, how deluded living entity can be free? That is that those pious and intelligent aspiring for liberation from the material bondage seeks refuge in him in devotional service with determination, knowing him to be the Supreme Lord. Those endeavoring for liberation, Sakam devotees are called Brahman, as known as everything about the transcendental activities. Freedom through knowing Krishna. Those who take shelter of Krishna, knowing him as a Adibhuta, Adidaiva, and Adiyagya, can know Krishna at the time of death. So, this is a very practical remembrance of Krishna. If Krishna a person knows Krishna's aspects of Adibhuta, Adidaiva, and Adiyagya, then he will be able to remember Krishna all the time. So, here are the questions now in brief. What is Adhyatma? What is Brahman? The answer is given below here. Brahman is the indestructible living entity. So, not from Bhagavatam we say, no, Brahmeti, Paramatmeti, Bhagavaniti Shabda. That is also Brahman. But that is Para Brahman. That is, and this living entity is spoken about Brahman. So, one may get a question, why Arjuna is asking what is Brahman, what is Karma? It is already been discussed, no? Previous verses, previous chapters. But here, particularly when uh, Krishna used these words, they have some relevance currently. And in that context, Arjuna is asking, what is Brahman, what is Adhyatma, what is Karma? So here, Brahman is indestructible living entity. The second one is, who is Adhyatma, the presiding deity of this body? Adhyatma is living entity. Living entity is nature. So there are two natures. Uh, that is material nature and a spiritual nature. And what is karma? Is karma fruitive or spiritual activity? Karma is the reaction that force the living entity to take material body in this world. So we have seen karma in the previously, that karma means action also, karma means it's a reaction also, karma means the system of action and reaction also, karma means particular karma also, different ways are there. So here karma is reaction that forces the living entity to take the material body in this world again. That has been explained. What is Adibhuta, the material manifestation? The fourth question. The answer is Adibhuta is the ever-changing material nature. So the nature is there, Lord's nature, material nature, and it is always taking different shapes and forms, changing again and again. And the fifth one, who is Adidaiva? Does Adidaiva refers to the demigods or the universal form? He, the answer is, he who presides over all demigods and their planets in the is the Adideva, the universal form of the Lord. So we'll see the universal form of the Lord and the Paramatma form of the Lord. These are the two different aspects how yogi meditates on. And then the sixth and seventh, who is Adiyagya, the Lord of sacrifice? Is Krishna the Adiyagya or the demigods are Adiyagya? Where whoever he is, does he preside? Where does he stay? Krishna is the super soul, is within everyone's heart, and Adhiyagya is the Lord of all sacrifice. And how does those engaged in devotional service knows the Krishna at the time of death? That is the last question. So the sixth question has two parts, therefore it is mentioned here total 8 questions, sixth and seventh here, and then the eighth one is last, or that previously I was speaking about the seventh question. So first verse talks only about asking the question, and the second verse Arjuna is asking, what is Adi Yagya, the sacrifice? How does he live in the body? The sacrifice means generally we understand the Agni is there and some Ahuti is put into that. And who is that Lord of sacrifice? Such sacrifices in the Vedas are mentioned for majorly for Indra, Karma Kanda section, but also for Vishnu, the chief of the primeval of demigods, as well as the Brahma and Shiva also including. And at the time of Prayana Kale, it is a very crucial time. Whatever thought will come, he will attain that destination. So, Prabhupada mentions about the beautiful verse of King Kulashekar from Mukundmala Stotra. Krishna Twadiyya Padapankaj Panjarantam Adyaiva me Vishatu Manasarajahamsa Prana Prayana Samaye Kapavata Pittai Kantavarodhanudhau Smaranam Kutaste. He's telling, my dear Lord, please engage my mind. Where? Tadiya Pada Pankaja Panjarantam. In your lotus feet, it is like a network of the lotus stems. And please fix my mind in your lotuses. Why? Prana Prayana Samay Kapavata Pittai. Because I don't know at the time of death how my body will respond. Kapavata Pittai. I will not be able to speak out your name also. So right now I am good. So let my mind be completely absorbed and engaged in your service only, O Lord. That is the prayer King Kulashekar is making to the Supreme Lord, and Prabhupada is quoting it here. So here we see uh, the words are being explained, different words are being asked, because we have to understand that generally uh, understanding we generally get by when we connect the different objects of this creation to the concepts which we understand internally through the words. Externally, some object is there, and internally, we have understanding. Like simple example is, okay, bird is there, bird. So small child sees that bird is flying, and then he asks the mother, "What is that, mother?" The mother tells that object is uh, that object is something that is called as bird. Now, what is bird? The concept is bird means it flies. It can fly in the air. So the word bird connects the object and the concept. So this is how the words are linking tools. They expresses our thoughts, and words also uh, observes and categorizes the objects through words. So this is the importance. Therefore, the different words are been asked. What is that? And Krishna is explaining in detail about all those six questions, different words. Actually, about these different terminology, Adhyatma, Adibhuta, Adideva, I heard that it has got lot many detailed explanation. Too many technicalities are there involved in it, and different acharyas has given a different understanding. Means in detail. In Madhva Sampradaya, I heard there are so many commentaries of Bhagavad Gita. Even in our Acharya lines, also down the line, in the Gaudiya Sampradaya, also there are many commentaries of the Lord, the Acharyas, Baldev Vidyabhushan and all. But Prabhupada has given the very essence of that all to us, very in a section, nutshell, the understanding about uh, what it means to be a Brahman, Adhyatma, Adibhuta, Adideva. Hmm? So here we see the Adhyatma. Atma means sometimes refer to the soul, body, and mind also of a living entity. But here Adhyatma is we saw the soul. Adi Brahman is indestructible and eternally existing, never changing. Akshara refers to the living entity. And beyond Brahman, there is a Parabrahman, the Supreme Lord. Karma, the material consciousness, Jiva's nature is to try to be the Lord over the material nature. And thus, he accepts various material bodies based on the karma. Karma forces him to take different bodies. Whereas spiritual consciousness is the Jiva's eternal position as the supreme servant of the Lord. And then comes the Adibhuta. The Adibhuta is ever changing material manifestation. Just like our body is there, it goes through the six different changes: birth, growth, maintenance, production, and dwindles and then vanishes. This physical nature is called Adibhuta. And Adidaiva, this is universal form of the Lord. So the gigantic universal form of the Lord is called as Adidaiva. That is the contemplation of attached yogi. So when the yogis are meditating, there are two levels of meditating. When Ashtanga Yoga, this comes in Srimad Bhagavatam, second canto, that when the yogi is meditating on the Lord, and if he has a lot of attached thoughts, attachments in his consciousness, then his dhanashraya becomes Virat Roop. But if he's detached yogi, then his dhanashraya becomes Paramatma. So he sees bottom of the feet of the Lord as a Patal, heels and toes as a Rasatal, ankles as a Mahatal, shanks as a Talatal, knees as a Sutala, and lower part of the thigh as a Vitala, upper part of the thigh as a Atala, Mahatala like hips, Bhuvar navel, Swarga chest, Maharloka neck, Janaloka mouth, Tapaloka forehead, and Satyaloka head. Like that, what is given in this picture here, like that, he tried to meditate. That is the meditation of attached yogi. And one who is a detached yogi, his dhanashraya is detached yogi. That is Paramatma is his dhanashraya. Uh, the living entity uh, makes certain sacrifices and attain the specific heavenly planets. It is a typical path has been discussed here. When the process of in the process of sacrifice, the living entity uh, makes sacrifice specific sacrifices to attain the specific heavenly planets, and consequently reaches them. And when he goes to the particular place, let us say in the heavenly planet, the living entity then exhausts his good karma by after staying there. Then through the rains, it comes to the grains. From rains come to the earth. Earth it goes to the grains. From grains are eaten by the man, and then transformed into the semen, and then impregnates the woman, and thus the living entity again comes to the human cycle like that. But a Krishna conscious devotee, he doesn't take this path. Krishna consciousness avoids this path, and he takes just remembrance of the Lord Krishna directly, and then prepares himself to go back to Godhead. That is his style. That is how he progresses in his life. Next verse. So what we discuss the questions, we try to discuss some answers also. The same answer, what Krishna has given in the next third and fourth verse. So we'll go through the third and fourth verse also. Shri Bhagavan Uvacha Aksharam Brahma Paramam Svabhavo Adhyatma Uchyate Bhuta Bhavo Karo Visarga Karma Sangitaha. The translation is not given here. So if you have on your Vedabes, but I can read it. If it is not there, I can read from here. Vedabes. This is third verse. The Supreme Personality of Godhead said, the indestructible, transcendental living entity is called Brahman, and this eternal nature is called Adhyatma, the self. Action pertaining to the development of the material body of the living entity is called karma or fruitive activity. So here it is said, indestructible, transcendental living entity, that is Brahman. And that living entity's nature is called as Adhyatma, that is self. And actions pertaining to the development of the material bodies of the living entity is called karma, the fruitive activities. So these are the terminologies Krishna is explaining in this now. Yeah. Yes. So, just to give some more understanding on it, Brahman is eternal. Subhav, the material and spiritual we saw. The material Subhav is Kshatriya, he is supposed to fight only. And spiritual Subhav is the person does any activity but with a mood to serve the Lord. And then sacrifice. It is not just the sacrifice we talk about, but it is also something higher. Like we hear in the first chapter of Bhagavad Gita that battlefield for Arjuna fighting was a sacrifice. Battle Fighting a battle was a sacrifice. So battlefield was a kind of yajna for him. Gandiva was a kind of a ladle for him, and he was putting ahuti of all Kauravas into that. Hmm. So similarly, uh, woman, she's a fire, and the semen that is called as offering. Dharma viruddha bhuteshu kamosmi bharatarshava, like that. Similarly, a man, when he is eating prasadam, that is also called as ahuti mm, to him, because whatever energy he will get out of that, he will engage in Krishna's service. And this is how that becomes eating, honoring prasadam becomes a uh, yajna. Mm. Or similarly, on the earth, when the rain falls on the earth from the top, then earth gives rise to the many different vegetations, different things. So rain is called as sacrificial offering and yajna is earth. So like that, these are the yajnas different mentioned in the Chandogya Upanishad, which comes in this purport. Mm. And Adi Bhutam, Adi Daivam, and Adhyatma, Adi Yajna. We saw these things, that sacrifices are there. Yes. So Arjuna, Lord Krishna answers Arjuna's questions by giving the detail what is Brahman, we just saw. The difference between the material consciousness, spiritual consciousness, we just saw this right now. Living entity is the called marginal energy, marginal entity, because it sometimes is tatastha. It sometimes identifies with the matter also. Although it's a living entity, but by staying karanam guna sangasya for a long time. And when he identifies with the matter, then he takes a lot of different bodies. Hmm. 84 lakh species of the life, and also goes to the transmigration, goes to the heaven, performs yajna. And but as Krishna conscious person, viewpoint is he avoids such all processes and thinks about Krishna and goes back to Krishna. Prabhupada refutes the impersonalism here. Brahman takes the form of the Jiva in the material world, and he gives wonderful references from the Vedic literature. That Brahman from the Parabrahman is different, and Supreme Lord is Achyuta. He never falls, but Jiva may fall down. That is how uh, impersonalism, they say is that Brahman only takes, their understanding is Brahman is there, and Brahman only comes to the material world. We discussed last time. Brahman in the mode of goodness becomes the Avtaras, Brahman in the mode of passion becomes the Jivas, and Brahman in the connection with the ignorance becomes the Prakriti. That is their understanding. But that is not a right understanding because Lord Brahman, Parabrahman is Achyuta. He never falls down, but Jiva can fall down. This is the difference between the Brahman. So the purports also discuss the Vedic sacrificial process, which we just now discussed uh, about these sacrifices. This is the five kinds of offerings: the faith, enjoyer of the moon, rain, grain, and semen. And sacrificial altar is heavenly planet, cloud, earth, man, and woman. So when faith is put in the sacrificial fire of altar, then he attains the heavenly planet. And then uh, in the heavenly planet is enjoyer of the moon. When he finishes his term, then through the clouds, through the rains, it comes from the earth. And from the earth, it goes to the grain. Then man eats the grain and it turns from the semen. And then from semen to the woman impregnation, it comes to the child. So these are the different five levels of yagyas mentioned in the Chandogya Upanishad. This is how typically the cycle works. But we also saw Krishna consciousness person. He remembers Krishna and goes back to Godhead. That is his process. So these five yagyas are mentioned here. The human form, how he attains the sacrifices to attain the heaven. Then after his exhaustion of the merits, he comes, descends to the earth in this material form in the rain, and then again takes the form of a grain. Then he's eaten by the man, transformed into semen, impregnates the woman, and then man form is formed. So this is how typically the cycle works. But a Krishna consciousness person avoids this loop and he prepares to go back to Godhead. That is his progressive path in Krishna consciousness. Yeah. अधिभूतं क्षरो भाव पुरुषश्चादिदैवतम् अधियज्ञो अहमेवात्र देहे देहभृतां वरः. Translation: O best of the embodied beings, the physical nature which is constantly changing is called Adibhuta. The constantly changing physical nature, that is called as Adibhuta, material manifestation. The universal form of the Lord, which includes all the demigods like those of sun and moon, are called as Adidaiva. So Adidaiva is the universal form of the Lord. And I, the Supreme Lord, represented as a super soul in the heart of every living entity, is called as Adiyagya, the Lord of sacrifice. So Adiyagya is he, the Lord of sacrifice. So in this way now, after answering all these six question or seven question, now from 5 to 8, Krishna will be focusing on remembrance of how the remembrance will come. That is the next verse. Remembering Krishna. In answering Arjuna's 8th question, Krishna says that whoever quits the body, remembering him, obtains him. In fact, one attains whatever he remembers at the time of death. Krishna therefore recommends that Arjuna should undeviatingly meditate on him, dedicate his activities to him, and thus attain him. So, about the previous terminologies, what words are used. So, they are mentioned only here. They are not used any other places in Bhagavad Gita or other Bhagavatam we generally see. So, therefore, we are now, as Prabhupada, Krishna himself also, and Prabhupada is focusing on the Smaranam part, the seventh question or the eighth question. Now that has been more explained now the down the line. So this is just for our understanding, and then for focus will be on meditation or remembrance of Krishna now onwards. अंतकाले च मामेव स्मरन्मुक्त्वा कलेवरम् यः प्रयाति समद्भावम् याति नास्त्यत्र संशयः. So very specific process is given here, and the next word talks about general process. And whoever at the end of his life quits the body, remembering me alone, at once attain my nature. Of this there is no doubt. So Krishna is telling, Antakale cha mameva. At the ending, at the time of his death, Smaran muktva kalevaram. He quits his body, remembering me alone. Ya prayati samadbhavam yati nastyatra samshaya. So there is no doubt about it that he will attain my nature. So this verse particularly focuses on remembering Krishna at the time of death. Will attain the supreme abode of Krishna. So Krishna is the purest of pure. So because devotees they remember Krishna, he also becomes the pure. But such remembrance is not possible for whom? For impure soul. Those who are impure in their thoughts, deeds, they cannot be able to remember Krishna. So the solution is purify yourself by practicing the remembrance. One has to practice remembrance. One cannot say that, okay, I will live my life the way I want, and at the end of the time, I will just think about Krishna and die. No, that's not possible. We cannot cheat Krishna. So, how one can practice the remembrance? Especially at the time of death, how one can be remembering? That is discussed in the fifth and sixth verse. So, first one is purity. Live in the mode of goodness. When person live in a mode of goodness, then Rajogun and Tamogun doesn't much uh, creates a powerful impact. Otherwise, when we are going to late nights and eating at different times, then Rajoguna and Tamoguna has a lot of influence on us. And because of that, Kama Esha, Krodha Esha, Rajoguna Samudbhava. So Kama and Krodha arises from there. So therefore, one should have lifestyle, eating, sleeping, mating, Yukta Ahara Viharasya, Yukta Cheshtasya Karmasu, Yukta Swapnavabodhasya, Yoga Bhavati Dukkha. So if he is mode of goodness, then this will help him to become more purer. Second thing is service. Life dedicated in service of Krishna and thus always thinking of Krishna. Hmm. If one is not serving, then he will think of enjoying by default. Either one want to serve or want to be served. But when you always remember Krishna is the Supreme Lord, then we want to serve him. And this service can be expressed by constant and incessant chanting of the holy name of Mahamantra. This is very much stressed by Prabhupada in the purports. In fact, I attended one class by one's very senior devotee Vaishnava from ISKCON Chowpatty and very philosophical personality, Shamananda Prabhu. So title for the Brahmachari class was, okay, today we are discussing on 8th chapter of Bhagavad Gita. So when I went, so he immediately said, this is the most important conclusion of the eighth chapter is chant Hare Krishna Mahamantra. Because in some purports like this fifth and sixth purport, Prabhupada has literally mentioned Hare Krishna Mahamantra once or twice also. Chaitanya was telling that in his remembrance of reading Prabhupada books, these are the verses where Prabhupada has quoted Hare Krishna Mahamantra full mm, uh, in this purpose. So, best way to serve is by chanting in constant and incessant chanting of the holy name of the Lord. And while chanting, we need to have tolerance, no, all impediments like a tree. Trinadapi sunicena, taroriva sahishnuna, amanina amanadena, kirtaniya sadahari. When such a consciousness is there, then person can chant the holy name of the Lord constantly. So, generally, when soul takes the next body, on what basis he is awarded a next life? Hmm, that is given. Yam yam vapi swaran bhava tejantyante kalevaram tam tameveti kaunteya sada tad bhava bhavita. So this is like general principle given here. Whatever state of being one remember when he quits the body, O son of Kunti, that state he will attain without fail. So this is like in general. Previous was the first, was a specific. Antakale cha mam eva smaran muktva kalevaram. If he remembers me, he will come to me. And here it says, whatever he remembers, he will attain that in his life. So in the one's life, uh, we get next body depending on what desires we have stored in our consciousness. If we are thinking too much about uh, envious of others, then one may become a snake. If somebody is too much lusty, then he may become a dog. So like that, the whole creation has designed particular bodies for particular desires to be more suited. Uh, Eating, one cannot eat so much as elephant can eat. So like that, if somebody likes too much eating, then he may become elephant also like this. And also the good and bad karma, what we have done in our life, based on that, person gets next body. So we see in case of Bharat Maharaj, Prabhupada mentions in the purport, Bharat Maharaj was such exalted person. At a time of death, he became a deer because he thought about deer. Somebody like to read this particular section on screen? Devesh Prabhu.
Bharat remembered a deer at the time of death and became a deer. Maharaj Bharat, although a great personality, thought of a deer at the end of his life, and so in his next life he was transferred into the body of a deer. Although as a deer he remembered his past activities, he had to accept that animal body. Of course, one's thoughts during the course of one's life accumulate to influence one's thoughts at the moment of death. So, this life creates one's next life. If in one's present life one lives in the mode of goodness and always thinks of Krishna, it is possible for one to remember Krishna at the end of one's life. That will help one be transferred to the transcendental nature of Krishna. Bhagavad Gita 8.6.
Yes. So one's thought during the course of one's life accumulate to influence one's thoughts at the time of death. So that is very, very essential to remember Krishna at the time of death. So here it is mentioned that hearing is important, but practical application is the most important. Only then will be possible to remember the Lord constantly. Because Shravanam certainly we can do, but practical application, how we are worshipping Krishna, how we are serving Krishna all the time, other time practically, that is very, very important. And please read this further. Prabhupada says in that purport.
If
If
one is
one is transcendently absorbed in Krishna's service, then his next body will be transcendental, spiritual, not material. Therefore, the chanting of the Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare, is the best process for successfully changing one's state of being at the end of one's life.
Yes. So if you are absorbed in Krishna's service, Krishna's thoughts, especially chanting the Hare Krishna Mahamantra, then is successfully mm, changing to the spiritual world, spiritual planet, what Krishna is promising there. Prabhupada mentions in this purport. So the seventh and eighth verse link the process just explaining here. Verses we'll see the further. So think of Krishna always. Tasmat, therefore now, Tasmat Sarveshu Kaleshu Mam Anusmara Yudhyacha. That is in Soka. Mayarpita Mano Buddhit Mame Veshyasya Samshaya. So Krishna said, Sarveshu Kaleshu Mam Anusmara. Arjuna may think, how is it possible? So Krishna says, by Abhyas. Next verse Krishna says, Abhyas Yoga Yuktena Chetasa Na Anyagamina. Paramam Purusham Divyam Yati Parthanu Chintayan. So this is how constant thinking is possible by Ma Manusmara Yudhyacha. And how it is constant thinking is possible? By doing Abhyas. Abhyas Yoga Yuktena Chetasa Na Anyagamina. So the seventh, it says, the Lord does not say that one should give up his prescribed duties or engagement. One can continue them and at the same time think of Krishna by chanting Hare Krishna. This will free one from the material contamination and engage the mind, intelligence in Krishna. By chanting Krishna's names, one will be transferred to the supreme planet Krishna Loka without a doubt. Without a doubt. Yeah. The sixth verse. Yam yam api smaran bhavat ajantyanti kaliveram tam tameveti kaunteya sada tad bhavat bhavita. So Prabhupada gives this clarity about general principles. The fifth one was the specific principle and the sixth one is general principle. One state of mind at a time of death determines the destination attained in the next life. And we saw the example of Bharat Maharaj. He thought of deer and he became deer in next life. So best process is chanting the Hare Krishna Mahamantra, Prabhupada explains. And Prabhupada also establishes that transcendental absorption in Krishna's service assures the next body to be spiritual and not material. And how to make sure that one thinks of Krishna at the time of death? So practically practice remembrance of the Lord Krishna at the time, but not at the time of death, throughout the life, not at the time of death. This is how person will be able to remember Krishna. Actually, subtle body is a template for our gross manifestation. So therefore, whatever subtle thought processes are going on, we have to be careful actually. Otherwise, if we die at that time, we'll attain the same thing. Mm. Just like there are laws of gravity, laws of um, different things in the material world. Similarly, there's a law of last thought also. Whatever one remembers, he will attain the same thing. तस्मात् सर्वेषु कालेषु माम् अनुस्मृत्य च मयि अर्पित मनोबुद्धिर् मामे वैश्यस्य संशय. तस्मात् सर्वेषु कालेषु. Therefore, Arjun, you should always think of me in the form of Krishna at the same time carry out a prescribed duty of fighting. With your activities dedicated to me, and your mind and intelligence fixed upon me, you will attain me without doubt. Hmm. So here, how always think of Krishna and at the same time carry out our prescribed duty is given here. So basically, Prabhupada mentions carry out your prescribed duty of fighting dedicated to me, is telling to Arjuna. Mind should be focused on Krishna by chanting Hare Krishna. Intelligence, mind and intelligence fixed upon me. Thus, the principle is always Krishna, foreground, center principle. Result will be freedom from the material contamination and surety of attaining me. If we do physical, mental, intellectual, all activities just to serve Krishna, then that is possible. And how to practice that? By constantly chanting Hare Krishna and perform our duties. So therefore, as an individual, for all of us, wherever we are, whatever services we are doing, if we want to be Krishna conscious, that means we have to give solid morning time hours for our japa. That will help us to remember Krishna for rest of the time. So that progressive consciousness will come when we really give quality time for our sadhana. When we give quality time for sadhana, then Krishna is always in the foreground of our consciousness whenever we are doing activities. And if you are not doing, then Krishna goes in background. So to keep Krishna as always foreground, we have to give quality time for our sadhana. All of us have experience. If your sadhana is little disturbed, then our consciousness also remains disturbed. We can see Lord Krishna in his hand in our life. Hmm. So yeah. Also, remembrance has another also aspect. Anuchintayan means constant remembrance. So here in this verse particularly, Krishna is telling without your activities, purusham. He used the words, no? Dasna sabeshu kaleshu. Oh, another verse he mentions in the 8th verse. Paramam Purusham Divyam. He mentions for the next verse he was mentioning about. I'll cover that there. Okay. Let us read the next verse first. Then we can cover that. Abhyas yoga yuktena chetasa na anyagamina. Paramam Purusham Divyam yati parthanu chintayan. So, translation says, who he who meditates on me, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, is mind constantly engaged in remembering me, undeviated from the path. O Pratha, he is sure to reach me. Paramam Purusham Divyam. Prabhupada tells me directly as a Krishna, but Paramam Purusham Divyam Yati Parthanu Chintayan. He will attain that Purusha that is mentioned here. So, importance of remembering Krishna. Lord Krishna stresses the importance of remembering Krishna by practice. So, he refutes. People say that no, if I have to remember Krishna, then I will give up the activity. Arjuna also was time and again asking, should I not fight? Should I not fight? But inactivity is not doesn't help remembering Krishna. We have to actively do our activities, whether I'm a student, whether I'm a working person, do our activities. But through that, we have to remember Krishna. And how to remember Krishna in our practical life? In any feature possible, Shravanam, Kirtanam, when you are working we may have kirtan going on, or before your work, you may read some verses of Bhagavad Gita and then remember Krishna. And we have to always practice purifying our life and go back to God at the end of the life. And most effective way to chant Hare Krishna Mahamantra that Prabhupada again and again stresses in this purport also. So what are the benefits? The revival of the memory of Krishna, our ear, tongue, mind are engaged in Krishna service, and then attain the Supreme Lord and his planet. Just like the caterpillar always think of butterfly and becomes a butterfly. So similarly, when we also remember Krishna, then we also go to Krishna Loka. And then importance of Purusha. Lord is the real enjoyer, confirms the Lord as the person recommended in the meditation on the Lord form of the personal form. So this is not something impersonal, this is Purusha. So when one engages in the different limbs of the devotional service, he goes back to Godhead just by his active meditation in his life. So from here, the further next section starts. I think we'll stop here for today. If anybody has any question, we can take one or two. Pranjul Prabhu.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji.
Yes, Prabhu. Hare Krishna.
Ji, one doubt, in job we do work overtime and all. So our our is in passionate and ignorance. Uh,
Ah,
in in one verse it is said that we need goodness for practicing Krishna consciousness.
right.
So we should change that type of job and do a simple job.
Uh, See, two things are there. Job may be very passionate, and if we can make it a very proper Sattva job, that is best, ideal. But there are different considerations to think of. That needs particular consultation with particular devotee who is guiding us. That will give us more clarity. Otherwise, taking that decision will not be very helpful.
Yes,
See, even in the sometimes the job are very hectic. Like let us say somebody is in Delhi working very hard and he has to go very late nights. So he has to make sure that while living his life properly, he gets proper 6 hours rest, and then he gets 2 hours time for his japa, and that should
yes,
be on priority. So sometimes typical situation may be there in person's individual's life, but in consultation, if he takes proper guidance, and he can very swiftly navigate that rough phase of his life, so that his other objectives are also fulfilled. And if it is possible for a person to switch over to the other job, there are not many other obligations, then that is best. Prabhupada always says, have a very sattoguni lifestyle that helps us to remember Krishna all the time.
yes. Thank you,
Okay,
Prabhuji.
Pranjal?
Yes, Prabhuji. Thank you.
Yes, Hiranmay Prabhu.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. Prabhuji, I'm asking about what is the meanings of the quality time for japa sadhana.
Quality time meaning is when we chant. What is quality japa? When we chant, we hear. We don't think of any other things. That is quality time. Especially it refers to the period of the time, that is morning japa, Brahma Murda japa. And when we are chanting, we are able to hear, not thinking of anything else. That is a quality time. Or when we are reading Prabhupada books, Bhagavad Gita, Bhagavatam, that time we are actually into the book and trying to understand what Krishna is saying, what Prabhupada is explaining, and how it is relevant to my life. So absorption in that, not that just time लगा के पढ़ लिया, आधा घंटा हो गया छोड़ दो अभी, like that. So that is not expected in this way. Okay. Hiranmay
Yes,
Nitaya too?
yes, yes.
I think Tanish's question got answered.
Yes, Prabhuji.
Thank you. So we'll stop for here today and we'll continue our 8th chapter tomorrow morning 7 o'clock. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. गौर भक्त वृंद की जय। गौर प्रेमानंद।